Hello everyone, welcome to the first lesson of our course Introduction to Geology. Today we'll be looking at the lesson The Theory of Evolution of Organisms and the Fossil Record. And for the lesson we'll look at Darwin's theory of evolution and how this relates to the fossil record, as well as sources of variation in individuals and how this as well has an impact on the kind of fossil assemblage that are observed in rocks today. So, as a background, we know that geology is the study of the earth at present. Using we basically what we do is to use the processes that are in place today to infer those ones that happened in the past. And one of the major tools that geologists use to study the history of the earth is to look at the fossil record, because fossils, they are remains of organisms that have lived in the past, and so they can actually provide us with evidence of the processes that were in place during the geologic past. The theory of evolution was developed by the popular scientist Charles Darwin during a 5-year period from the 1831 to the 1836. At that time, he was working as a naturalist, moving around the world, and then he encountered fossils in rocks that he studied. And with that, he made two observations. One is the fact that the fossils they found in rocks, they seemed to change even within the same species. They tend to take up different forms from one rock type to another. And then he also noticed that the new parts or the differences they saw in these dead animals now and plants now, they vary, and the evolution is a gradual rather than a sudden change. So it was a gradual and a continuous change from one form to another, and they attributed this to a gap in the geological record that might have been caused either by erosion or a period of non-transition. And variation is basically differences that are observed in one organism from another within the same species. So apart from the individual uh, kind of variation, that is individuals for every species, they vary from one form to another, and that is the basis for the development of this theory of evolution. There are other factors that also contribute to differences that we might observe in our fossil assemblage. So one of them is what we call the ontogenetic variation, which says that organisms might not look similar during their stages of growth. That is, as organisms grow from one form to another form, they tend to take up a different shape or a different size. Also, there is a phenomenon that we know as alternation of generation. That is, one species that grows up in a form, by the time it reaches adult, it might develop into another form. For instance, dimorphism, that is when organisms can exhibit two different kinds of reproduction within the same species. An organism can reproduce asexually at first and then give birth to offspring who would reproduce sexually. Then the last one is the taphonomy. That is the burial and preservation process of organisms. Because the way organisms are preserved and the place in which they might be preserved, they do differ. We might have differences in the fossils that we eventually encounter. So as we bring this lesson to a close, let's look at the major things we've considered. We first of all establish the fact that fossils are the major evidence to support evolution, because Charles Darwin in his work noticed that the fossils they saw in rocks, they tend to, or even of the same species, they tend to change from one form to another. Apart from the fact that organisms do vary due to their individual characteristics, the issue of the burial process and the way and method in which they grow also leads to variation, and an understanding of the fossil record as well as how they change from one rock to another is very useful in interpretation of the history of the earth. Thank you very much for staying with us. We'll see in the next lesson.